Hey guys, you got Crave here, and I'll admit I had a lower opinion of the game in the first 10 hours. The TLDR is that I thought the game would be about a 5 out of 10 given what I had seen, but after a week of playthrough, mulling it over, watching my wife and my son progress their own gameplays, I think it's a good 6 to 6.5 out of 10. A definite buy if it goes on sale, but it wouldn't be the worst thing if you get it right now. I've got a short review of the game if you guys want to understand what I meant by my quick take. Let's go over the game in the three usual sections I explore, so that's graphics, story, and gameplay. Now, Biomutant is a strange game, and fun at the same time if you've always thought of playing a character like Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy. Mechanically, it's a decently implemented open world action RPG with great visuals. I really do mean that the game looks fantastic. The character models are very detailed, or at least give that impression of being well drawn out. It doesn't intend to have I would say, a realistic vibe to it, but the art style is good to look at. Your character will look good no matter how you customize it at the start. The armor and weapons do, well, look weird, and it takes some time to get used to it, but it does match the overall strangeness and silliness of the game. What I do find weird is that the gear pieces with the better stats are often the ones that appear to be quite, quote unquote strange, while the pieces that look normal have little to no stat benefits. If you're after specific stats like critical chance or good energy or energy regen, your character can look like a silly mashup of clothing styles. At the start, it's a turnoff, but eventually I think it's something I just laughed at and appreciated at the same time. The world setting is great, as it should be for an open world game. The difference in biomes and settings are important, which alleviates some of the repetitive stuff in the game, which we'll touch upon later. The game looks amazing when you're traveling in the open world and trying to get to a quest location, and when you're just trying to hoof it to some resource node. The lighting and design of the zones are really just well done. Now, the audio aspect of the game is great. The background music gives off an epic feel, but it's nothing too serious as the rest of the game gives off a very light-hearted feel. Even some of the tougher enemies, like the big bosses, and some of the, elite enemies, that's how I would call them, have a certain quote-unquote cuteness to them. The narrator can be tiresome as the guy will often repeat or say things that you already know, but you can dial it down in the settings section. In addition, I think for this part, Experiment 101 plans to make some changes to this in probably a future update.
Oh, idea. Go knock the lid off that sludge truck. It'll fill the place up and you can get up to that entrance there.
Now, in terms of the story or the plot, this will really be just the quickest part of the review. Biomutant's story is cliched and basically nothing new. Along with the weirdly delivered dialogue options and light versus dark meter system, the plot and the system is nearly, irrelevant. The story isn't something that drives you forward. If it does, it's pretty weak at it. It doesn't make you wonder what happened, and it doesn't make you think that you need to know what happened to this guy or you need to know how this other person's story played out. I think part of it is due to the characters having their own language by default, so the delivery of the lines is done in a very specific way or strange way. Plus, the structure of the dialogues or at least the way you talk to different NPCs, they get very, 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 very similar as you progress in the game, which adds to the repetitive nature of Biomutant. You can mostly skip some talk for the side quests, and you'd realize you didn't really miss a thing. And this might have worked out years ago, but with RPGs really just stepping up their dialogue options, it's just a letdown. Story wise, again quickly, Biomutant just falls short. I could say it's workable, but I really can't. In terms of gameplay, this is a very, very divisive part of the review. Now, you can either be addicted to it, the game itself, or aspects of the game can force you to go ahead and finish off the main quest quickly, or you can just stop playing altogether. Along with my wife and son, although I did finish it, I think my feeling towards the game or the gameplay aspect of Biomutant is in the middle of things. There are certainly fun elements to it. The traveling in the open world leaves you with a good feeling. You can hoof it going to a certain place, you can fast travel, you can glide, use a speedboat, or ride your own mech. There are restrictions at times, but in terms of roaming, you have a ton of options. I feel like Experiment 101 did great in this part, as most open world games miss this part. Their creativity and provisioning of options for players makes exploration fun and silly at the same time. Biomutant being self-aware for, well, the most part, makes this a good aspect of the game. You can even do pointless but fun customizations to your rides, and this also applies to your gear. The weapon and armor customization is strange, like I mentioned earlier, but its mechanics will remind you of the last two Fallout games. You have to basically collect, well, it happens in many RPGs, you have to collect resources in the open world, and you have to deconstruct gear sometimes to get their parts, or sell gear to get money to buy the parts that you need, or the materials you need to upgrade gear pieces you intend to keep. This is another aspect of the game that's really fun, as your weapons will again look like a crazy mashup of parts. If you build your weapons right, enemies just get blasted away. The only downside of this aspect is the lack of inventory management options. There should be a better way of organizing gear based on the stats they give, or for you to know whether they're already part of a certain outfit set. Also, having more outfit sets, more than 5, and being able to name some of them or all of them would be a great addition. Character building, or the RPG aspect, is a bit more open than I expected. I initially thought that selecting your class would limit you in the long term, but it doesn't, as it turns out. Watching my son and my wife's gameplay, I saw them using abilities that I thought would be restricted to Psy-Freaks, which was my chosen class. At the same time, I really liked the two-hander my son was using, and I didn't expect to get a similar weapon as I was progressing my character. I prefer character uniqueness in most games, but it somehow works in Biomutant. Now, the other aspects are pretty standard in terms of building up your toon. As you progress, you get leveling points that you can allocate, and the open world is filled with nodes and pickups that enhance or help you learn newer abilities. Now, these other points you gain, aside from leveling your character, they're called psi points and bioblobs. These points that you get are really just important if you want to learn skills that might appear to be restricted to other classes. On the last aspect of gameplay, which is combat, it really is fun, and if you played games like the Arkham series, then it will feel the same. You have to time your parries and your dodges, and there are combo systems that you have to get used to and to be able to dish out the most amount of damage. Being in the vein of Arkham, it is fun. However, the combat feels very, very floaty from a melee aspect. You just don't feel the impact, whether it's your basic melee or special move attacks. Even using your ranged psionic attack, they feel like, well, there's no push to them or feeling to them. The gunplay, however, feels okay. Like there's a connection between every shot you fire, whether you have a rifle or an automatic weapon. So paired with the fun customization aspect of weapons, this led me to use an automatic rifle as a Psy-Freak for most of the fights that I would get into. In summary, and like I said earlier, Biomutant is a 6 or a 6.5. There are fun aspects to it and charming aspects to it, but the negatives really just make you wonder. This game is okay, but it has the potential to be so much more. But either the end product is intentional, or Experiment 101 just had to make do with what they had. Anyway, thanks for watching this, guys. Talk to you soon.